Does it seem to you like AI is pretty much all over the place at this point in time? I feel like a couple of years ago, it started out as like, hey, there's this cool thing called ChatGPT that can do things and answer questions for you. And now all of a sudden it's like, Apple's got AI, Samsung's got AI, everything's got AI. And I want you to remember this video when the first AI-powered smart air fryer is announced. And with this growing presence of AI all over the place, it feels as though people's sensitivities to AI generated content are as high as ever. Last week we got our first look at the Kong Creature Codex, which is a visual aid to a tabletop game that is being prepared by Evil Genius Games. And people were very quick to point out how the art and the depictions of these creatures within the book look very, very similar to what people would consider an AI generated art style. We'll take a look at some of these images, and I'd like to shout out Behemoth Mode over on X/Twitter for doing a compilation of creature designs from the book with the depictions shown in the Kong Skull Island anime. And so we'll take a look through here really quickly. So like here's the aloe turtle. Here's the anime depiction. Here is the Creature Codex depiction. And as someone that has spent a little bit of time looking at AI generated output, there are tells in the designs that sort of lean toward being AI generated. You want to look at the number of digits. Sometimes the eyes don't look very, very good. So here, like you can see, he's got the 5 toes on this arm, but he's got 4 toes on the other arm. But you know, it seems like the smallest toe on here is quite small, so maybe it's just peeking behind. It's not very clear. Here's the amberpede, so this is the artwork in the book. Here is the actual depiction in the Kong Skull Island anime. And obviously they look quite different, but just because they're stylized different, I wouldn't indicate that as a sign of AI. For me here, like this left mandible here, being so digitized, it's hard to tell if it matches the one on this side. That to me is like the only real indication that something might be off here. Going down, we have the flash gulls. Nothing too interesting here. They weren't very well detailed in the anime. So here you have the more stylized, and again, it's very difficult to see if there are actual inconsistencies. I guess here at the green one, the claws on the toes are a little bit difficult to see. Now this next one, the galloping crocodile, like I saw this image and was like, oh yeah, like 100%, that's gotta be AI, right? Like this is how he looked in the show, and now all of a sudden he's upright and walking. Like this would be a dead ringer until I read the sentence, until it stands up on its hind legs and begins to gallop. So apparently it is supposed to be bipedal and walking on 2 legs. Again, you can't even count the number of fingers, toes here, and the eye looks fine. There's nothing really standing out to me here as potentially AI generated. Here we have the giant dodo. Here he is from the show. Here he is in the book, and it seems like a very straight adaptation. Grass hedgehog, here he is from the show. Red grass, very similar silhouette. Count the toes, 3 toes. Again, so nothing is really standing out to me here as like very clearly AI. And then there's a couple more here. Again, there's no dead giveaways. Although the Kraken, here's what the Kraken looks like in the show, and then you have this artwork here. Like huge deviation from how it looks in the show. So to me, that would be the big thing, saying, hey, this doesn't seem right. But you know, maybe Legendary was fine with that. And then we get to the horse, the Roker. This has been the big one that has been sort of triggering people's sense that this has been AI generated content. Taking a look at it, it's not difficult to see why. Like the thing does look very classically AI generated, very similar art style. So Evil Genius Games actually took to Reddit to say, hey, we've heard some of your concerns, and like, you know, here's the artist that does the stuff, and here's the part of the contract where like you are not permitted to use AI generated content. And people are like, hey, we've looked at that website and we still think that it's AI generated, so we'll share some more of his artwork. And so here are the in progress shots of the Roker being drawn by artist David Chen. And this seems about right for what you would expect the progression of a piece of art to look like. It's become a very sticky situation of like, is this actually AI generated art? You know, is this artist duping us and duping Evil Genius Games and trying to get AI generated art passed as legitimate handcrafted art. And if you take a look at the artist's website, you'll see lots of stuff that looks very, very similar to the Roker, to the artwork featured in the Creature Codex. If you look for the tells, the eyes, the digits, nothing here screams that it's AI generated, to me at least, but this artwork certainly looks like something that AI would try to replicate. If you go to the About page for the artist, David Chen, it says that he graduated with a bachelor's degree in fine art in 2007, and then he completed his master's in 2011. So he's been doing this for 14 years now, long before the AI generated art crazy wave. So it's actually quite difficult for me to sit here and determine like conclusively whether David Chen is using AI generated content to create his art. One thing that's really important to keep in mind when it comes to artificial intelligence is that it needs to train itself on existing artwork. If that AI model is trying to create a piece of artwork, it has to look at existing artwork and try to replicate it or try to learn from it. One of the biggest concerns around generative AI is that people who create the content that this AI scrapes and learns from are not being properly compensated for this unwarranted use of their art. It's not out of the realm of possibility to me that David Chen's art is the type of art that generative AI models would try to train themselves from. Honestly, if you showed me artwork like this back in 2011, like that would be so cool. That would be so amazing. And if it turns out that David is innocent in this whole thing and people are just looking at this assuming that it's AI, I think that's a real travesty. I'm entirely sympathetic to the idea that generative AI poses a substantial and possibly unprecedented risk to those who work in creative fields. It's already difficult to monetize your ability to create things, to take beautiful photographs, to create music, to draw amazing pictures. And so when you have these generative AI models coming in like a wrecking ball and disrupting the market, people are going to be really sensitive to that type of thing. At the same time, I don't think that the cure to the problem should be worse than the disease. And I'll give you an example of this. My friend Harold over at the Figure Mania show, a couple months ago, somebody took a shot that he had taken of Scar King. They ran it through an AI like video maker type thing, which just showed the Scar King figure being animated using AI. And Harold saw it and he's like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like, I'll share it on my social media because, you know, I thought it was neat. I thought other people might find it neat. And it just led to like this avalanche of people being very unhappy with Harold entertaining generative AI, people accusing Harold of using generative AI in his photography, which might be a compelling argument if Harold didn't go out of his way to post behind the scenes footage of every photograph that he posts. It was quite possibly some of the most absurd backlash that I've seen in recent times. And I do think that it led to Harold maybe honing in on which platforms he spends the most time on. And it's not even like people just weren't giving him the benefit of the doubt. It's just that people didn't have any doubt to begin with. They were just like, no, you're using generative AI. You're the worst. All of your photography is now being drawn into question. All because Harold was like, yeah, this video is kind of neat. I want others to see it. And if I'm being completely honest, I do think that generative AI has its use when it's not compromising the livelihoods of artists. There was this case back in 2023 where this boy with, a rare condition received a diagnosis from ChatGPT after seeing 17 different doctors and receiving a bunch of different medical opinions, none of which were able to correctly conclude what he had. Stuff like this is absolutely needed. I know it's a bit of a meme to be like, oh, Canada, free healthcare, all that good stuff, but the Canadian healthcare system is in absolute shambles. People waiting and dying in waiting rooms across the country. There was a moment last year when I was in a waiting room waiting for the results of some blood work when a woman came in. She was a little bit older and she was told that she was going to have to wait 5 or 6 hours to be able to be seen by a doctor. And she waited maybe 2 minutes before she just broke down in the waiting room crying, saying like, why couldn't you all have gone somewhere else? Why couldn't you all have gone somewhere else? Before she ultimately asked for assistance getting a taxi home because she just couldn't afford to wait that long. So I do think that there are uses for generative AI, but in instances of like illustrations, it becomes a little bit muddied in the water. Something like Harold posting an AI generated video of one of his photography shots, I don't think that harms anybody. He's not taking money away from an artist that he was going to hire to do this kind of animated shot. But on the flip side, if you were a big company like Legendary contracting out to, this Evil Genius Games, and this Evil Genius Games is using AI generated art instead of an actual artist, like, yeah, that obviously that is not okay. But if AI is being trained on existing artwork, then maybe we should be affording some benefit of the doubt when the people who make that artwork that's being stolen fall under the microscope like this. I can't seem to find it right now, but there were also some folks taking the image of the Roker and passing it through an AI detection software, and it was like, oh yeah, it's like 90% likely that this was generated using AI. But even those things are very, very spotty. I work in university where we are testing some of these platforms, and they're very unreliable. Like, you can pass a student's handwritten essay through it and it would be like, oh yeah, this is most likely generated by AI. And so we're actually having all these big discussions regarding whether or not we should use a tool, because if we get false positives, it's worse that innocent people get flagged for using AI than it is for people using AI to just sort of go under the radar unpunished. So all in all, I think that this is a very precarious situation. It involves a little bit more nuance than folks are inclined to give it. And I understand why. I understand everybody's very, very sensitive to the generative AI topic, but keeping in mind that there may be innocent people who just don't know any better, or whose artwork is being exploited for the purposes of generative AI. I've had a couple of people gift me things kaiju related that were very clearly using AI models, like, you know, Godzilla's right hand has 4 fingers, his left hand has 3 fingers. Maybe the answer is more literacy around generative AI. Maybe it's, you know, training people what to look for and things like this. All the while keeping in mind that some people are using this in ways that aren't hurtful, and that some folks are just unwitting victims in this whole situation. That's going to be it for me, but I'm curious to hear from you. What are your thoughts on this artwork being used in the Creature Codex? Do you think that it looks interesting? Does it look too much like something that would be created by AI? Let me know in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, I will talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.